You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
I'm Stephen Cabral, board-certified naturopathic doctor. And today on our last house call, second house call of the weekend, we're going to be answering more of your questions. And so we've got some great questions today. Like I said, they're a lot different than yesterday's, and that's why I love the variety of the questions. And so a lot of people say, what do you specialize in? And that's the hard thing that I struggle with, is that I don't specialize in one thing. A lot of my practice has to do with digestive-based issues, gut-based issues, simply because they're a lot of times the root cause of what people are dealing with. But, we work on autoimmune, we work on skin rashes and diseases, we work on mental, emotional-based issues as well, cancer support, you name it, we work on it. And the reason is that I don't treat the disease, which means I work and treat the person, which means that it doesn't matter to me what you come to me with. I'm looking at the root causes that allow for that expression of the disease or whatever that health issue is. So again, the disease doesn't matter. It's a name given to a certain group of symptoms. And I dislike that we even have names for it, because people start to associate with whatever that disease is. Oh, like it's my rheumatoid arthritis acting up, or it's, I have the cancer, I have whatever it might be. And all of these things are brutal, they're debilitating, but you can't associate it with it. You have to understand that came about because, yes, you might have something in your genetics that allows for the expression of that, but it's the environment, it's the lifestyle, it's the nutrition, it's the supplements, it's the medications, it's all those things that allow for it to express itself or not. So you have to understand that we need more generalists. We need more people who look at the root cause of the issues rather than always going to specialist after specialist. I think there's a time and place to go with that and look at your specific symptoms with a specialist, but at the same time, you need to be working on the root cause. So I guess that's my tangent for the day, and we're going to move on to now your questions. So the first question's a unique one, and it says this. The person wanted their name to be anonymous, so we're going to respect that. And they said, does your body odor correlate with your diet? If I have a cheat, I find I have bad-smelling armpits, breath. Is this related? So there's a few questions. I'll answer all of them. It is absolutely related. So a lot of people, when they eat certain foods, they can literally smell it through their pores. A lot of times, this is all gut-based. This is all digestive-based, meaning like there's intestinal-based permeability. These particles, these food-based particles, in Ayurveda, they called it ama, can actually seep through the intestinal wall because of increased gut permeability, also called leaky gut, and it can actually end up in the bloodstream. But a lot of people, it's specific to sulfur-based foods. So I can't go through every sulfur-based food right now, but you're welcome to look up sulfur-based foods. And sulfur-based foods do cause a lot of these odors with certain people. So, and again, a lot of times they're healthy foods, right? They are cauliflower and broccoli, and they are Brussels sprouts. So check them out, look them up. The bigger ones that we know mainly are garlic and onion, and that absolutely can, again, you can smell that coming through the pores, and those are sulfur-based foods too. Now, okay, so now let's talk about the bad breath part of it. So bad breath is actually a little bit different. I talked about this previously before. I believe it was on episode 178. And on 178, I talked about how when you look at the gut or the stomach, essentially is like a garbage disposal. And when you don't flush down that garbage disposal for a day or so, you can actually smell the rotting food down there. Well, it's really the same thing with your stomach. When you have bad breath, it's honestly an indication that you have weak stomach acid, most likely, weak digestion, and that food is just staying down there too long. It's fermenting, it's rotting, or there's bacteria that's actually being kicked up as well. So again, the organic acid test is great to look at if there is yeast overgrowth, is there bacterial overgrowth, but really strengthening that digestive system is very, very important for that, and that is the place to start. All right, so the second part to the question is asking if apple cider vinegar is something that I would recommend, and is it bad for the teeth? So really great question. I've answered this previously, and I want to go over it again because so many people use apple cider vinegar. So if you're going to use apple cider vinegar, I recommend the raw apple cider vinegar, and I recommend it by the company called Bragg's. So what is apple cider vinegar? Well, basically, it's a raw fermented, so it can be great for those people who are looking to strengthen their digestion, add a little bit more alkalinity to their body. And how does that work? Well, the apple cider vinegar actually, if you take it with a meal, usually it's like 3 tablespoons per 6-ounce glass of water. So add 6 ounces of water to a glass, add about 3 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar to that. You can sip it during a meal. You can sip it when you first wake up. Now, it's acidic, so it's acidic in your stomach, which helps with digestion, and so the stomach is supposed to be acid. People get confused about acid, alkaline, but different compartments of your body have different pHs, and your stomach's actually supposed to be about a 2 or 3 in pH, very, very low when you're digesting food. So, and that helps break down proteins and all that. Now, as it comes, though, into the bloodstream, there are so many minerals that it alkalizes the blood. So, and again, I understand that the blood has to be a pH of around 7.356, but what happens is it adds minerals to it. So it doesn't rob the body of more minerals, and that's what we talk about when we're talking about alkaline. Okay, so yes, it can be absolutely fantastic. However, if you have yeast, you have bacteria, you have Clostridium difficile, SIBO, Crohn's, colitis, probably not that great, not at the beginning. The reason is that fermented foods can feed all of the critters down there, and it is quite high in histamines, which means if you're someone with allergies, it might not be best right away to use. Okay, now is it bad for your teeth? Well, it is acidic, so it can wear away or pull leach minerals from the mouth. But typically, apple cider vinegar is diluted, and you're also taking it with food. So I don't have that much of an issue. It's like drinking lemon water. Lemon water is acidic as well, but a lot of people drink it through a straw. That certainly will help bypass the teeth, and you could do that as well if you're worried about it. So hopefully that answers your question. And let's see who is up next for the questions today. Liz writes, I start every day listening to your podcast. I've learned many valuable things, so thank you. I love when I get these comments. A lot of people do say they start their day with the Cabral Concept podcast, and that's just great for me to hear and really, just reinforces what I'm trying to do. And it's just set people up for the day, for healthy habits, and just kind of build off everything we're learning on each show. And that's what I plan to do in the future as well. Liz is asking, I am a few years into my autoimmune adrenal fatigue female hormone recovery, and one thing I don't hear very often is what actual numbers should be optimal for female hormones, thyroid, adrenal numbers. Sometimes I like to order tests on my own, but don't feel comfortable reading them on my own. I'm 51 and going through menopause. And then says Lisa. Okay. So really great questions. Let's talk about functional medicine labs. So the thing is, whoever you order a functional medicine lab through, you shouldn't be basically reading the lab on your own. I just would find that hard to believe and imagine, and wouldn't actually be safe, because you might be reading into things that aren't actually there, and no one number is the make it or break it. That's why a lot of people try to read each number individually. It's looking at the lab as a whole. So you're either going to run this through a functional medicine practitioner, you're going to run it through a naturopathic doctor, an MD that does functional medicine, or if you order through a website like ours where you go to stevencabral.com/store and you see all those functional medicine labs, I read them myself. I give you the synopsis of what it means, and then I also recommend a program for you that includes nutrition, that includes supplementation, whatever you need. And you also get a 30-minute consultation with our holistic health coach and nutritionist that takes you through everything that I recommended. So never go through it on your own. I think that's a really bad idea. There's just a lot of education that goes into this, and not even a lot of MDs or any health practitioners out of school learn the exact stuff, and then what you do is you do continuing education to find out all of this great information. Remember, you can't learn everything in 4 years of school. It doesn't happen for anyone. Okay, so let's talk about the hormones. I think that's the best place to start. And for female hormones, you really want to look at your balance between estrogen and progesterone. Too often, women are told, well, your estrogen levels are normal and your progesterone levels are normal, but that's not enough. You actually have to look for an exact balance. Now, the balance that I've always looked at and does seem to work out really well clinically in my practice is a ratio of about 1 unit of estradiol. So estradiol is like the main form of estrogen in your body. It's about 80% of all the estrogen in females. That's what you're going to look at. So that's what most labs look at. And then you're going to look at progesterone. And so you want to look at about 1 unit of estrogen for every 30 units of progesterone. Now, some people say 33, some people say about 25. What you'll see is about 30 is a good measurement. So here's what I find. Most women with fertility issues, most women with stress-based issues, most women going through menopause, dealing with menopausal-based issues are all dealing with normal estrogen. We're always told women's estrogen is too high. Okay, well, here's the thing. It is too high, but only as a consequence of progesterone being too low. And what I mean by that is they might have perfect, like I'm looking at a lab right now and I wanted to use real-world data for you. This is someone dealing with basically menopausal-based issues, but they're only 32 years old. So we know they're not going through menopause yet. What happened is their estrogens at the higher end of the range. So if you use a lab like I use, and again, you can find this just at our store, you're going to find that the range is 1.3 to 3.3 for estrogen. This person was 2.9. Now, their progesterone, the range should be 75 to 270. Now, I always test females who are still ovulating, going through their cycle. They should be above 200 for the amount of units around day 21, day 22 of their cycle. This person was 67. So they have 2.9 for estrogen, 67 for progesterone, which means their ratio is just way off. I mean, it's just completely off. And so what happens is you'll see there's a low progesterone estrogen ratio. Now, this means you're going to be suffering all of the symptoms of menopause that we don't want. Maybe the hot flashes, maybe poor sleeping, maybe vaginal dryness, maybe low libido, maybe muscle loss, like all of these things that you don't want, right? So it's all about the ratio and not about the individual numbers. And again, I can't, like, there's so many specifics around this, right? Because then we're looking at DHEA, we're looking at testosterone. My recommendation is just that you run the adrenal hormone test at stevencabral.com/store. And if you don't want to run it with us, no problem at all. Run that same lab through a qualified functional medicine practitioner. And then you will have your answers. You will know what you need to do to combat that. All right. And the last question today is by Christy. And Christy is asking, what is your take on steroids and the effects on the body? So I'm assuming we're not talking about anabolic steroids like testosterone, but if you are, I don't recommend testosterone because what happens is it then depletes your own natural stores of testosterone, which means your body stops producing its own. So unless you're really 60 plus or 65 plus, even thinking about using testosterone to me is a really bad idea. And the reason is that I can, and so can other natural-based doctors, help you improve your testosterone levels. I literally do it every single week in my practice without having to use any synthetic testosterone. So what you're going to do is just take the stressor off the body, allow the body then to be more in the parasympathetic nervous system, allow it to produce more of those sex hormones, which it will do. Make sure it's getting enough zinc, make sure it's getting enough vitamin C, make sure it's getting enough of all the cofactors. You basically, and you can go through this whole process, and I'm happy to explain that part of it. But what I think you're asking about is about like prednisone and a lot of the catabolic-based steroids that you take as an anti-inflammatory or for autoimmune-based issues or for allergies. And if you're talking about those, well, I mean, again, like I can't recommend them at all. I mean, the side effects are everything that happens in the fight or flight. So massive anxiety, diabetes potentially, high blood pressure, emotional issues, depression, muscle weakness, or actually muscle atrophy, seizures, ulcers, intestinal-based issues, loose stool, low thyroid, adrenal fatigue. Because what you're doing when you take things like those catabolic steroids like prednisone is, yes, you are squelching inflammation in the short term, but in the long term, the side effects are brutal. It's basically like going through massive, massive stress on the body. And we know when the body goes through massive stress, it starts to just break down. And it first starts with that immune system as well, which means when people are on prednisone, they could get pneumonia, they could get really life-threatening based issues. And the reason is their immune system goes down. So I can't recommend steroids at all. I mean, they're a last resort, remember? So like I'm talking about as a just general health-based condition. But let's say you're in the hospital and it's a life-threatening based issue and life-threatening based illness. All bets are off, right? At that point, you're doing anything to save your life. You can take antibiotics. You can take prednisone. You can do whatever you need to do to stay alive. And of course, I'm not against that. What I'm talking about is the everyday thing. You're suffering from an autoimmune-based issue like rheumatoid arthritis, or you're suffering from allergies like debilitating allergies or asthma. And it's not life-threatening. You just need to reduce all of that swelling, all of that inflammation, whatever it is. At that point, I'm looking at natural-based treatments. I don't see the need, the issue, to or whatever it is to go to, worst case scenario, and then have to suffer the consequence of taking the catabolic steroids, the prednisone, and then have to deal with all those repercussions. So it just puts you another couple steps back. But again, you need to listen to your body. You need to go with your gut. You need to do what you believe is best for you. And of course, if you can, do try to work with a natural health practitioner in your area on these specific things, someone that really is into naturopathic medicine, functional medicine, or, just, again, an overall great natural-based practitioner. So a lot of interesting questions today. Enjoyed them. Please do keep the questions coming. That's what this show is all about. It gives me great in-depth topics, and of course, I get to answer your questions and connect with you personally. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in to another great week of the Cabral Concept. We'll be back tomorrow with another mindset and motivation. Don't miss it. Ever wonder what the best sauna, blue blockers, sleep trackers, wake lights, salt lamps, or other health gadgets are? Or what about the top non-toxic mattresses, sheets, soaps, bath products, toothpaste, and cookware? Or would you like to know the cleanest choices for hemp parts, meal delivery services, supplements, and much more? I personally curated, researched, and now created a resource page of all of my top picks that continues to grow each week. These are the exact products I use in my own life, with my family, in my private practice, and they're the ones I trust. To find out all of my up-to-date recommendations and all the details, simply head on over to stephencabral.com/resources.